one night with her cold, wealthy boss. She disappeared. 2 years later, he learned he has an heir. Their first kiss burned with years of suppressed recognition. His hands, those hands that signed billion-dollar contracts, trembled against her face like he touched something precious. Have you ever crossed a line you swore you'd never cross? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. She saved his life at 10:42 p.m. on a frozen Chicago night. By 2:17 a.m., she was in his bed, breaking every rule she'd set for herself, knowing tomorrow would shatter them both. Danielle Harris didn't plan to work late that February evening. The marketing department at Prescott Enterprises cleared out hours ago, leaving the 47th floor silent, except for the howl of wind battering against floor-to-ceiling windows. Outside, Chicago vanished beneath a blanket of white as the worst blizzard in a decade paralyzed the city. Just finish the quarterly presentation and go, she whispered to herself, gathering papers in her leather portfolio. That's when she heard it, a crash from the executive suite followed by a strangled cry. She found Nathan Prescott collapsed beside his desk, clutching his chest, face contorted in pain. The man whose cold stares made vice presidents tremble, who fired people for missing deadlines, who built an empire through calculated ruthlessness, now helpless on imported marble floors. Mr. Prescott. Danielle dropped to her knees beside him. I'm calling an ambulance. No hospitals, he gasped, fingers digging into her wrist with surprising strength. Medicine, cabinet, office, bathroom. The storm had knocked out all deliveries to the building. Roads were impassable. Ambulances wouldn't arrive for hours. His private bathroom yielded what she needed, an emergency medication kit with his name engraved on it. Her hands trembled as she administered the injection exactly as the instructions detailed. Minutes stretched like hours until color returned to his face. His breathing steadied. You saved my life, he whispered, voice stripped of its usual command. For the first time since she'd worked under him, Nathan Prescott looked human. The storm's getting worse, she said, helping him to the leather couch. Emergency services are backed up citywide. Stay. His request hung between them, stripped of authority, laced with something unfamiliar, vulnerability. The Chicago skyline glittered like frost-covered diamonds beyond his windows, the blizzard transforming Michigan Avenue into a ghostly winter wasteland as his breathing steadied beneath her trembling hands. I never asked what brought you to my office this late, he said, watching her with new intensity. The Anderson presentation. You wanted it redone by morning. Something flickered in his eyes. I've been hard on you. On every one, she corrected. A half-smile touched his lips. Especially you. Have you ever crossed a line you swore you'd never cross? What pushed you to that point? Tell me in the comments below. What happened next defied explanation. Maybe it was the storm cutting them off from reality. Maybe it was facing mortality in that marble-floored office. Maybe it was 2 years of tension finally breaking. His fingers brushed hers, accidentally, then deliberately. Electricity jolted between them. His gaze dropped to her lips. The air charged with unspoken what. Danielle, he whispered her name like a question. She should have backed away. Should have maintained professional distance. Should have remembered every rumor about Nathan Prescott destroying careers on a whim. Instead, she leaned forward. Their first kiss burned with years of suppressed recognition. His hands, those hands that signed billion-dollar contracts, trembled against her face like he touched something precious. The penthouse suite became their world that night, clothing discarded across Italian leather furniture. Her body pressed against cold windows overlooking a frozen city. His whispers against her skin, confessions never meant for boardrooms. Hours later, wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets on his bed, he slept peacefully beside her. Danielle watched dawn break over Lake Michigan, reality crashing back with the first light. What had she done? As dawn broke over Lake Michigan, she slipped from his sheets, leaving behind 3 words on hotel stationery that would haunt him for years. I'm sorry. Goodbye. For 2 years, he searched for her ghost in every marketing meeting, every corporate gala, every face that passed him on Michigan Avenue. The woman who vanished without a trace, but somehow took pieces of him with her. Nathan Prescott didn't realize people could simply disappear in the digital age. No resignation letter, no exit interview, no forwarding address. Just gone. Her apartment emptied, social media deleted, phone number changed. As if Danielle Harris had never existed beyond that snowy Chicago night. "Sir, the Anderson clients are waiting in conference room," his new assistant announced, not daring to meet his eyes. 3 assistants in 2 years, none lasting more than 8 months under his increasingly cold management style. His corner office remained unchanged. Italian leather, burnished mahogany, Chicago spread out like an empire at his feet, but the emptiness echoed, a hollow space where her laughter once filled cracks he never knew existed. "Tell them I'll be there shortly," he replied, turning to the window. Below, Michigan Avenue teemed with people rushing between meetings, none of them the woman he couldn't forget. Nathan Prescott, who controlled billions with a signature, had lost control of the one thing that mattered. At night, her phantom touch haunted him, the scent of her perfume, jasmine and vanilla. Sometimes drifted through his office when doors opened. His dreams betrayed him with memories so vivid he woke reaching for someone who wasn't there. What's the longest you've gone unable to forget someone? Drop a heart if you've ever had someone disappear from your life without explanation. Meanwhile in Memphis, Danielle Harris built a new life piece by quiet piece. A marketing position at a mid-sized firm. A small apartment overlooking the Mississippi River. A carefully constructed existence where nobody knew about Chicago or Nathan Prescott. She avoided business news, changed the channel when his face appeared on financial segments, and tried not to notice how her son's eyes, already showing hints of stormy gray, matched the man she fled. "Ellie, time for bed," she called her toddler, who giggled and hid behind the sofa. "No sleep," the little boy declared, curls bouncing as he peeked out. Those eyes, Nathan's exact shade, his exact intensity. Some nights, she drafted emails she never sent. "Nathan, I left because I was afraid. You deserve to know. How could I expect you to want?" Each draft deleted by morning light. From Memphis to Houston to Richmond, she moved whenever roots threatened to form, whenever connections grew too deep, whenever she imagined Nathan Prescott might track her down. Richmond finally felt safe. A Victorian house with a porch swing, a marketing director position, a fiancé who adored Elliot without questions about absent fathers. A life rebuilt, a past buried, until the day his assistant handed him an unmarked manila envelope postmarked from Atlanta. The day Nathan Prescott, who controlled billions with a signature, lost control of his perfectly constructed world. The photo slipped from the envelope into his hands. Tiny fingers, curly hair, and eyes that were unmistakably his own stared back, challenging everything he believed about his biology, his future, and his past. Nathan stood frozen in his Atlanta hotel suite, the skyline blurring outside his window as he studied the photograph under every light, at every angle, as if the pixels might rearrange themselves into a different truth if he just looked hard enough. "Impossible," he whispered, but the evidence stared back with his own eyes. The child appeared to be around 2 years old. Black curls framed a face with coffee-colored skin and striking gray eyes. The Prescott eyes that had marked his family for generations. Eyes he never expected to see on another face. He flipped the photo over. Written in neat handwriting, Elliot Harris Prescott. Harris. Danielle Harris. The timing aligned perfectly with that snowstorm night. The night before she vanished. But Nathan Prescott couldn't father children. A childhood accident had left him sterile, or so every doctor had told him throughout his adult life. It had ended his first marriage, shaped his approach to relationships, defined his legacy planning for Prescott Enterprises. He reached for his phone, then set it down. What would he even say? To whom? A single sentence accompanied the photo. "He deserves to know his father. Ask yourself if you deserve to know him." Memory fragments from that night resurfaced. Her skin against his, whispered confessions, promises neither expected to keep. Had she known she was pregnant when she left? Was this why she disappeared? Would you search for someone who clearly doesn't want to be found if you discovered they were keeping a life-changing secret? What would be your first move? Nathan poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon, the Atlanta skyline twinkling as night fell. Then he did something he hadn't done in years. He lost control. The glass shattered against the wall, amber liquid streaking the expensive wallpaper. Within an hour, he had assembled a team of private investigators, medical specialists, and attorneys. By morning, he held preliminary reports on Danielle's movements since leaving Chicago. Memphis, Houston, now Richmond. Ms. Harris has been in Richmond, Virginia for approximately 8 months, the lead investigator reported via Secure Line. She works as marketing director for Bright Path Solutions, lives in the historic district. The boy attends Little Acorns preschool 3 days weekly. What else? Nathan demanded, hearing hesitation. Sir, she appears to be engaged. The wedding is scheduled in 3 months according to social media posts by friends. Her fiancé is a pediatrician at Richmond Memorial. Nathan's jaw tightened. I'm flying to Richmond immediately. Continue surveillance, but maintain distance. No contact. He hung up, staring at the photo again. A child with his eyes. A child who carried his name, at least in part. A child being raised by another man. The investigator's voice crackled through his phone. We found her, Mr. Prescott. She's in Richmond. And sir, she appears to be engaged. He'd built skyscrapers, broken competitors, and controlled boardrooms with an iron will. But nothing prepared Nathan Prescott for standing on a Richmond sidewalk watching a little boy with his eyes play in a park with another man. Nathan's rental car, deliberately modest to avoid attention, idled across from Jefferson Park where families gathered on a warm spring afternoon. From behind darkened windows, he watched a scene that twisted something primal inside him. The boy, Elliot, raced across wood chips, arms outstretched like airplane wings, curls bouncing with each step. Behind him jogged a tall man with glasses and an easy smile. The fiancé, the replacement, the man playing father to a child who carried Prescott blood. Colonial architecture and magnolia trees framed the quaint Richmond neighborhood, a world away from steel and glass Chicago. As he gripped the rental car's steering wheel, a stranger watching what might be his son laugh with a man who wasn't him. 2 days of discreet observation revealed patterns. Morning walks to the corner bakery. Afternoons at this park. Danielle picking Elliot up from preschool Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays while her fiancé covered Tuesdays and Thursdays. A perfect little family. A life constructed without him. Nathan had rehearsed a dozen approaches, mapped contingency plans, even prepared legal documents. Yet he remained paralyzed in the car, watching shadows he didn't belong to. The boy's laughter carried across the park, a sound that reached places in Nathan long closed off, places he didn't know existed. Have you ever watched someone you once knew intimately living a completely different life without you? How did it make you feel? Share below. He followed at a distance when they left the park, trailing them to a small grocery store. Through the windows, he watched Danielle join them, her hair longer now, her smile softer than he remembered. She kissed her fiancé briefly, then bent to wipe ice cream from Elliot's chin. Nathan's chest tightened. In Chicago, he could buy or sell companies with a signature. Here, he was powerless, excluded from a reality he hadn't known a what. Decision time. He could return to Chicago, pretend the photo never arrived, continue building his empire alone. He could launch legal proceedings, demand paternity tests, exercise rights through courts. Or he could simply walk into that grocery store and face the woman who'd vanished with more than just memories. His phone buzzed with Chicago business demanding attention. Meetings scheduled, decisions pending, an empire waiting. Nathan silenced it, watching Danielle load groceries in her car while the fiancé buckled Elliot into a car seat. Tomorrow, he decided. Tomorrow he would approach her. Directly, honestly, with questions that deserved answers. As Danielle loaded groceries in her car, she froze, that familiar prickling sensation of being watched. And when she turned, the shopping bag dropped from her hands, oranges rolling across the parking lot toward the last man she ever expected to see again. She'd practiced this moment 1,000 times in her nightmares. facing the man she fled from, the father who didn't know, but nothing prepared her for the raw hunger in his eyes that said he hadn't come just for answers. Nathan. His name escaped her lips before she could stop it. Around them, the grocery store parking lot continued its ordinary afternoon rhythm. Shoppers loading bags, cars passing, life proceeding normally while her carefully constructed world imploded. He stood motionless, exactly as she remembered, yet somehow different, still commanding in his tailored suit despite Richmond's casual atmosphere, still radiating that quiet power that made people step aside, still looking at her with an intensity that made her skin flush despite the fear coursing through her veins. "Hello, Danielle." His voice, that low, controlled timbre that once whispered against her skin, sent electricity down her spine. "It's been a while." The fiancé approached, confusion written across his features. "Everything okay, babe? Who's this?" "Michael, could you take Elia home? I need to handle something." Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears, too high, too brittle. Michael hesitated, looking between them before nodding slowly. "Call me if you need anything." The subtle emphasis on anything carried unspoken questions. Nathan's gaze followed the car as it pulled away, his jaw tightening visibly. "There's a cafe around the corner," she said, gathering herself. "We can talk there." The Richmond Cafe buzzed with afternoon patrons, their murmured conversations and clinked dishware creating white noise around the eye of their storm. Two people sitting rigid across from each other, the table between them an uncrossable ocean. "How did you find me?" she asked, though she already knew. Nathan Prescott could find anyone if he wanted it badly enough. "Someone sent me a photo." He slid his phone across the table, screen displaying the picture of Elliot. "Care to explain?" Their knees accidentally touched under the small table. She jerked back as if burned, the electric current of unresolved desire still humming between them after all this time. "What do you want me to say?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. The truth would be a start. His controlled tone belied the storm in his eyes. "Is he mine? What would you say to someone who disappeared from your life only to reappear with life-altering news? What questions would you ask first?" Danielle stared into her untouched coffee. The truth she guarded for nearly 3 years hung between them. Yes, the single word transformed him. Something flashed across his features. Pain, wonder, anger, longing, too complex to name. "You knew you were pregnant when you left." "I suspected. I confirmed it 3 weeks later. And you didn't think I deserved to know?" The careful control in his voice cracked slightly. "What would you have done, Nathan? Offered money? Suggested termination? Added a child to your collection of assets?" The bitterness in her voice surprised even her. "You never gave me the chance to show you what I would have done," he countered, leaning forward. "You made that decision for both of us." "I need to see him," Nathan said, voice dropping to that commanding tone that once made boardrooms fall silent. "I'm not leaving Richmond until I meet my son." Her response, "He's not yours to claim," unleashed something dangerous in his eyes. She invited the devil into her home, not because she trusted him, but because keeping enemies close was the only way to protect what mattered most. The little boy upstairs who had no idea his world was about to change. "Ground rules," Danielle stated firmly, standing in her living room 3 days after their cafe confrontation. "You meet him as my former boss from Chicago. Nothing more." "Not yet." Nathan nodded, his tall frame looking out of place among the colorful toys scattered across her hardwood floors. His eyes scanned everything, framed finger paintings, the growth chart marked in pencil on the doorframe, photos documenting milestones he'd missed. Her living room, filled with finger paintings, children's books, and framed family photos, told the story of the years he'd missed, each object a barrier between the corporate titan and the family life he never knew he wanted. "Michael will be home at 6, she added. "He doesn't know about us." "What does he know?" Nathan asked, touching a small handprint preserved in clay. "That Elliot's father isn't in the picture. That's all." The sound of footsteps on the stairs silenced them both. Around the corner came Elliot, rubbing sleep from his eyes, clutching a well-loved stuffed elephant. Nathan froze, seeing his own eyes looking back at him from a child's face. "Elliot, this is Mr. Prescott. He used to work with Mommy in Chicago," Danielle said, voice deliberately light. "Hi," the boy said shyly, hiding partially behind his mother's legs. Nathan crouched down, meeting him at eye level. "Hello, Elliot. That's a cool elephant you have." "His name is Trunk," Elliot declared, holding the toy forward. "He's brave." "I can tell," Nathan replied, his voice gentler than Danielle had ever heard it. "Brave is good. Would you let someone who once broke your heart meet your child? Or would you draw the line? Comment your thoughts below." What Danielle expected, awkwardness, corporate stiffness, discomfort, never materialized. Instead, Nathan slipped into interaction with Elliot with surprising ease. He sat cross-legged on the floor, helping build block towers. He listened with complete attention to Elliot's rambling stories. He asked questions that made the boy light up with excitement. When Elliot's tower crashed, both reached for the same block, their fingers brushing. Nathan's eyes met Danielle's over their son's head, a moment of connection that sent warmth rushing through her. This wasn't the cold CEO who ruled Chicago's business world. This was someone new, or perhaps someone who had been buried all along. The front door opened at 5:45. Michael stopped abruptly, taking in the scene. His fiancée, the strange man, and Elliot playing together as if they'd known each other forever. "Michael," Danielle stood quickly. "This is Nathan Prescott, my former boss from Chicago." Michael's smile didn't reach his eyes as he shook Nathan's hand. Interesting timing, visiting just months before our wedding. As Nathan left, Elliot's small voice carried down the hallway. "Mommy, why does that man have eyes like mine?" Her fiancé's expression hardened as the front door closed, his question hanging in air grown suddenly cold. "Who exactly is he to you, Danielle?" 2 years of carefully constructed lies began crumbling around her. Not because Nathan demanded truth, but because a 3-year-old's innocent question exposed what she had worked so hard to hide. "I asked you a question," Michael repeated, standing in their bedroom while Danielle closed Elliot's door after tucking him in. "Who is Nathan Prescott to you? And don't say, just my old boss, because I saw how he looked at you." "How you looked at him?" Danielle sank onto the edge of their bed. The engagement ring on her finger caught the lamplight, a promise suddenly in jeopardy. "He's Elliot's father," she admitted, the weight of those 4 words filling the room. Michael stepped back as if struck. "His father? The man you said wanted nothing to do with either of you? The man you said never even knew about the pregnancy?" "I never told him," she whispered. "He found out recently." "So you lied? To him? To me?" Michael's voice hardened with each word. "Does he want a DNA test?" "Probably. Yes. And custody?" The question she'd feared since seeing Nathan in the parking lot. The reason she'd run from Chicago in the first place. "I don't know what he wants." Midnight found her on a back porch. Richmond's humid summer air heavy with fireflies and unspoken truths as her fiancé packed a bag inside. "Not leaving forever," he claimed, "just until he could process what you've kept from me." Sleep eluded her that night. When she finally drifted off, Nathan haunted her dreams, his hands on her skin, his voice in her ear, memories of their one night together amplified by her subconscious. She woke breathless, tangled in sheets, guilt washing over her for wanting someone who threatened everything she'd built. Is there ever a good reason to hide a child from their biological parent? Where's the line between protection and deception? Share your opinion. The courier arrived at 10 a.m. the next morning, a small package requiring her signature. Inside, a DNA testing kit and a note in Nathan's precise handwriting. For closure. Results come only to me unless you want a copy. Your choice. She stared at the cotton swabs, the collection tubes, the consent forms. So clinical, so cold, yet potentially life-changing. Elliot napped upstairs, oblivious that strangers with lab coats would soon analyze his cells, confirming what his gray eyes already declared to anyone who knew Nathan Prescott. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "I love you both. Just need time." Another message arrived moments later, from Nathan. "Dinner tonight? To discuss next steps. Professional setting. 2 men, 2 paths, 2 versions of her future colliding." The DNA test results arrived via courier. She hadn't even known Nathan had obtained Elliot's toothbrush during his visit. The unopened envelope sat on her coffee table like a ticking bomb while across town, Nathan's phone rang. "Mr. Prescott, I found something concerning in MS. Harris's past you need to know immediately." She had built walls to protect her son from Nathan's world, never expecting that her own secrets would be what finally brought those walls crashing down around them all. Nathan sat in his temporary Richmond office, listening to his investigator's report with growing concern. Ms. Harris grew up in the foster system between Detroit and rural Alabama, the investigator explained. Aged out at 18, worked multiple jobs to put herself through college. Clean record, exemplary work history. "So what's concerning?" Nathan asked impatiently. Her last foster father, James Warren, was recently released from prison. He served 8 years for assault and financial fraud involving his foster children. Records indicate Ms. Harris testified against him. Nathan's grip tightened on his phone, and he's in Richmond, has been for 2 weeks. Financial records show he's desperate, made threats against former foster children who testified. Find everything on Warren, every detail, and increase surveillance on Danielle's house. The DNA results lay unopened on his desk. Unnecessary confirmation of what he already knew in his heart. But this new threat overshadowed everything. Rain lashed against Richmond's historic buildings as lightning illuminated her face in the doorway. Makeup free, hair wild, eyes hollow with fear. Nothing like the polished marketing assistant he once knew, but somehow more beautiful in her raw desperation. "You need to leave," Danielle said, blocking the entrance to her house. "Michael's coming back tonight. We're talking things through." Nathan ignored her protest, stepping closer. Her clothes were damp from the sudden storm, clinging to her body in ways that momentarily distracted him despite the urgency of his visit. "James Warren is in Richmond," he stated flatly. Her face drained of color. She grabbed his arm, pulling him inside and shutting the door. "How do you know that name?" "My security team found him. He's been asking questions about you." "Elliot," she whispered, eyes darting to the stairs. "I need to get Elliot." "He's safe," Nathan assured her. "I have someone watching the house. Warren is across town." She collapsed onto the sofa, trembling. Nathan removed his suit jacket, placing it around her shoulders. The gesture, so intimate, so protective, reminded them both of boundaries crossed and still existing. "Have you ever had someone from your past show up, just when you thought you'd outrun your history? What did you do? Tell me in the comments." "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. "About your background? About Warren?" "When?" she challenged. "During our professional meetings? During our one night together? While I was leaving Chicago pregnant and terrified." His jaw tightened at the reminder of how little they truly knew each other despite the child they shared. "Warren can't hurt you now," Nathan stated with absolute certainty. "I won't allow it." Thunder crashed outside, rain pelting the windows as Richmond disappeared behind sheets of water. Danielle clutched his jacket tighter around herself, his scent enveloping her. "I can help you," he said, the words she never thought she'd hear from Nathan Prescott. "But first, we need to be honest with each other, completely honest. Starting with why you really left Chicago that night. Under a Virginia moon." She finally confessed what drove her away that night. Not fear of rejection, but terror that the most powerful man she'd ever known would take the one thing she couldn't bear to lose. They sat on a bench along the Richmond riverfront the following evening, water reflecting city lights like scattered stars as they sat 2 feet apart, yet connected by invisible threads of a child's existence in a night neither could forget. "I grew up with nothing," Danielle began, eyes fixed on the water. "Different homes, different schools, different rules. The only consistent thing was inconsistency." Nathan listened silently, his usual impatience nowhere visible. "When I discovered I was pregnant, I researched you." She glanced at him briefly. "Your family history, your business tactics, your divorce." And his voice remained neutral. "Your ex-wife's interview about your custody battle. How you hired a team of lawyers when she wanted to move with your goddaughter. How you fought for control." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "You thought I'd take the baby. I knew you would, she corrected. The Prescott heir? A bloodline for your empire? You're a man who gets what he wants, Nathan. You would have swooped in with lawyers and money and power. You couldn't have known that. The Nathan Prescott who fired my colleague for missing work during his mother's funeral? The man Chicago Business Monthly called ruthlessly effective at acquisition? Yes, I knew exactly what you would do. Their hands accidentally touched on the bench. Neither pulled away immediately. The contact sparked memories of that night. Skin against skin, whispered words, a connection neither had felt before or since. You make me feel seen, she admitted. And that terrifies me because what happens when you really look and don't like what you find? When have you misjudged someone based on reputation or assumptions? Did you ever discover the truth too late? Share your experience. What about your foster father? Nathan asked, shifting topics, but maintaining their newfound honesty. Warren, why is he threatening you now? Danielle took a deep breath. He forced his foster kids to participate in insurance scams. When I aged out, I reported him. My testimony put him away. And now he wants revenge. Or money. Probably both. She shivered despite the warm evening. He knows where I live, Nathan. He could contest custody if he wanted to cause trouble. Former foster parent claiming I'm unfit. That won't happen, Nathan stated with absolute certainty. You can't control everything. Watch me. The simple declaration carried the weight of his fortune, his influence, his determination. Rain began falling suddenly, fat drops that quickly became a downpour. They ran for shelter under a nearby gazebo, laughing despite the seriousness of their conversation. In the dim light, with her hair damp against her face and thunder rumbling overhead, she looked exactly as she had that morning in Chicago. Beautiful, conflicted, and somehow belonging to him despite everything. His fingers tentatively covered hers on the weathered wood bench. I never would have taken him from you, he whispered, voice cracking. But someone else is trying to now, aren't they? Her tears fell as she nodded, confirming his worst fear. Elliot was in danger, and it wasn't from him. The Chicago Titan and the Richmond single mother formed an uneasy alliance against a common threat. Discovering that protecting their son might mean risking everything, including the careful distance they've maintained. We need to be strategic, Nathan said the next morning, spreading documents across her dining room table. Warren has a history of manipulating the system. We need to stay ahead of him. Danielle nodded, watching Nathan work with the same intensity he'd once directed at corporate takeovers. He'd arrived at 7 a.m. with coffee, legal folders, and a security specialist who now discreetly monitored the house perimeter. Michael called, she said quietly. He's coming back tomorrow. Nathan's jaw tightened momentarily. Good. You need support. He's confused about your role in all this. I'm Elliot's father. That's my role. The simple declaration hung between them. His temporary Richmond office became command central. Laptops, legal documents, and security plans spread across antique tables meant for genteel Southern dinners, not strategic warfare against shadows from her past. For 3 days, they worked side by side, rebuilding a connection different from their previous boss-employee dynamic, different from their single night as lovers. Something new, co-parents united against a threat. She saw a Nathan Prescott few ever witnessed, bringing lunch without being asked, remembering how she took her coffee, playing with Elliot during breaks with natural ease that surprised her. Would you trust someone who once broke your heart if your child's safety depended on it? What boundaries would you set? Comment below. Late one night, after Elliot was asleep, they fell asleep amid documents scattered across her sofa. She woke to find her head on Nathan's shoulder, his arm around her protectively. For a moment, she allowed herself to imagine this wasn't temporary, that the three of them could be a family. Reality crashed back when Michael returned, suitcase in hand, commitment renewed, but trust damaged. I'm staying, he announced, eyeing the documents and laptops. This affects me too. Elliot is part of my life. I appreciate that, Nathan replied with surprising diplomacy. Danielle needs support right now. Michael's expression softened toward Danielle, but hardened when addressing Nathan. I understand you're helping with this Warren situation. But let's be clear, Danielle and I have plans. A wedding. A future. I'm not here to complicate things, Nathan lied smoothly. Just to ensure Elliot's safety. The tension grew thicker when Elliot bounded down the stairs, running straight to Nathan with the drawing. Look what I made. The boy climbed onto Nathan's lap without hesitation, comfortable in a way that made Michael's expression darken. The fiancé's voice cut through their strategy session. I think it's time for Mr. Prescott to return to Chicago. Before Danielle could respond, Nathan stood, voice quiet but firm. I'm not going anywhere until my son is safe. The word might hung in the air like a declaration of war. Her world split into battle lines. The man who promised her future security versus the man who shared her past and her child's DNA, with Elliot caught in the middle and her heart betraying her at every turn. This situation is temporary, Michael insisted later that night, his voice low as they stood in their bedroom. Once Warren is handled, Prescott goes back to Chicago. That's the agreement, right? Danielle nodded, though uncertainty clouded her thoughts. Nathan had made no such promises. If anything, his growing bond with Elliot suggested the opposite. And the custody situation? Michael pressed. We haven't discussed details yet, she admitted. Michael's hands closed over hers, his touch familiar and safe. I love Elliot like my own. You know that. But I need to understand what we're facing here. Will Prescott demand regular visitation? Shared custody? What does this mean for us? Questions she'd avoided since Nathan appeared in that grocery store parking lot. Questions without easy answers. Southern summer heat pressed against windows like a physical force as three adults circled each other in the kitchen, voices low to protect little ears upstairs. The ceiling fan's rhythmic clicks, punctuating unfinished sentences and unspoken threats. The next morning brought news. Warren had been spotted near Elliot's preschool. We're pulling him out immediately, Nathan declared, already on the phone with his security team. He stays home until this is resolved. That's not your decision to make, Michael countered. It is when my son's safety is at risk. Your son. Michael's voice rose. Where were you for the first 3 years of his life? Were you during night fevers and first steps? That's enough, Danielle interrupted. Elliot stays home. I'll work remotely. Nathan's eyes met hers across the room, a look of such gratitude and connection that Michael couldn't miss it. His jaw tightened as he grabbed his car keys. I have patients waiting. We'll talk tonight. The door closed firmly behind him. Have you ever been torn between what looks right on paper and what feels right in your heart? How did you decide? Share your story. Days passed in tense cooperation. Security updates. Legal maneuvers. Warren seemingly always one step ahead, appearing and disappearing across Richmond. What surprised Danielle most was watching Nathan with Elliot, reading bedtime stories, building elaborate block cities, answering endless why questions with unexpected patience. Not performing fatherhood, but embracing it naturally. He asked if I'm staying. Nathan mentioned one evening as they reviewed security footage. Elliot, he asked if I'm going away again. What did you tell him? I'll always be his friend, no matter where I am. The careful wording. Friend, not father. Respected her boundaries while hinting at his intentions to remain present. Michael grew increasingly distant, working later hours, his ring on her finger feeling heavier each day. The future she planned now competed with a past that refused to stay buried. I've been researching medical centers, Nathan announced over coffee one morning. Chicago has the country's top pediatric specialists. There's a Montessori school near my building with an excellent reputation. She froze. What are you saying? I'm creating options. For both of you. When the fiancé slammed the door behind him, the house shook, but not as much as she did when Nathan closed the distance between them, hand-cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything she thought she knew about him. Tell me to step back, he whispered. She couldn't form the words. They collided like stars too long held apart by gravity. Knowing each touch was forbidden, each kiss a betrayal of the lives they'd built, yet unable to deny the truth their bodies had always known. His fingers traced her cheekbone, waiting for rejection that didn't come. 3 years of questions, regrets, and what-ifs hung between them. Michael was at an overnight conference. Elliot asleep upstairs. The house quiet except for their breathing. "This isn't why I came to Richmond," Nathan whispered, his forehead touching hers. "Why did you come?" she asked, though she already knew. Not just for Elliot, not just for DNA confirmation, for the unfinished business between them. "For the truth," he answered. "All of it." Her hands found his chest, intending to create distance, but instead feeling his heartbeat beneath expensive cotton. Steady, certain, terrifying in its familiarity. "We shouldn't," she whispered, even as she tilted her face toward his. "Tell me to stop," he challenged, lips hovering just above hers. She answered by closing the distance. Their first kiss was hesitant, testing boundaries, acknowledging complications. The second erased doubt. The third ignited everything they'd suppressed since that Chicago night. Moonlight sliced through blinds, painting silver stripes across tangled sheets and intertwined bodies as Richmond slept beyond her bedroom windows. The world on pause while they created their own universe of whispered confessions and rediscovered curves. Her body remembered his, the weight, the touch, the rhythm. But this wasn't the frantic connection of that snowstorm night. This was deliberate, conscious, chosen despite consequences. "Are you sure?" he asked, hovering above her, giving her one last chance to maintain the walls between them. "Yes," she breathed, drawing him closer. "Just tonight. When is physical chemistry not enough? When is it everything? Where do you draw the line between passion and partnership? Tell me your thoughts." His touch erased 3 years of separation, finding places only he had discovered. Her name on his lips sounded like both question and answer. Their bodies spoke truths their words had danced around for days. Afterward, they lay awake, reality seeping back with each tick of the bedside clock. "What happens now?" she asked, her head on his chest. "Whatever you want," he replied, fingers tracing patterns on her bare shoulder. "I'm not asking you to upend your life. I'm just asking for a place in it. And Elliot, he deserves to know his father, to know he's wanted, loved." She propped herself up, studying his face in the dim light. The hardness that once defined Nathan Prescott had softened. The calculating CEO replaced by someone more complex, more human. "I never wanted to keep you from him," she admitted. "I was protecting him for what I thought you'd do. I know that now." His fingers traced her cheek. "You're a fierce mother. It's one of the things I admire most about you." One night, they agreed. One mistake they wouldn't repeat. One memory to close the chapter between them while they figured out co-parenting arrangements. Morning found them still awake, plans and possibilities whispered into shared darkness, until her phone lit up with an anonymous text. "I have pictures of them entering your house last night. Transfer $250,000 by noon, or they go to your fiancé and the press." Nathan's face hardened as he read over her shoulder. This ends now. He built his fortune outmaneuvering opponents who underestimated him. Now, with his son's future and Danielle's safety at stake, Nathan Prescott unleashed the full power of his resources against an enemy foolish enough to threaten what was his. "It's not Warren," Nathan said, examining the text. "The writing style, the demand amount, it doesn't match his profile." Danielle paced the bedroom, hastily dressed, panic evident in every movement. "Then who? Who else would care about us? Someone who knows I'm here. Someone monitoring the house." Nathan's mind raced through possibilities. "Someone who benefits if I leave Richmond." Their eyes met with sudden understanding. "No," she whispered. "He wouldn't. Your fiancé, conveniently away at a conference the night blackmail photos are taken." Nathan's voice hardened. "Let's find out." Within hours, Nathan's security team traced the text to a burner phone purchased at a gas station 3 miles from Richmond Medical Center, where Michael worked. Security footage showed a familiar face at the register. Not Michael himself. Nathan explained, showing Danielle the footage. His colleague, Dr. Reynolds. Jason? But why would he? Money. Hospital records show Reynolds owes gambling debts. And look at this. He pulled up an email chain. He and Michael have been corresponding about me since I arrived in Richmond. The Richmond police station hummed with fluorescent efficiency as evidence spread across metal tables. Financial trails, threatening texts, and surveillance photos creating a map of malice that led straight to someone she once trusted. Detective Wilson leaned forward. So Dr. Reynolds was blackmailing you on Dr. Carter's behalf. Michael claims he knew nothing about the blackmail, Danielle said quietly. That Jason was acting alone. Do you believe him? The detective asked. She didn't answer. Would you forgive someone who once abandoned you if they came back and fought for you? What would they need to prove? Comment below. Outside the police station, rain fell in sheets. They sat in Nathan's car, watching water cascade down the windshield, obscuring the world beyond. The engagement's over, she said finally. Even if he wasn't behind the blackmail, he's been working to undermine you since you arrived, tracking your movements, sharing information with Reynolds. Nathan's hand found hers in the darkness, a gesture of comfort that quickly evolved. Her fingers intertwined with his. His thumb traced her wrist, the small space filled with tension that had nothing to do with the case they just filed. Impulsively, she leaned across the console, her lips finding his in a desperate kiss that said everything words couldn't, about fear and relief and newly opened possibilities. As they broke apart, Nathan's phone rang, his investigator with news about Warren. We found him, and sir, you won't believe who he's been meeting with. They arrived at the interrogation room to find Warren already in custody on unrelated charges. The man looked older than his file photo, harder, angrier, defeated. I want immunity, he demanded. Then I'll tell you everything. About what? Nathan challenged. About how your precious marketing girl isn't who you think she is. About who really paid me to come to Richmond and scare her. The blackmailer's identity stunned them both. The trusted colleague from her Chicago days who had helped her escape, who had known her whereabouts all along, who had been playing both sides for years. Why? She whispered across the interrogation table. His answer chilled her. Because Nathan Prescott destroyed my family, and I wanted him to know how it feels. The truth unraveled like a forgotten melody. How Nathan's ruthless corporate takeover years ago had bankrupted her blackmailer's father, leading to suicide and a vengeful son who saw Danielle and Elliot as perfect instruments for delayed justice. Marcus helped me leave Chicago, Danielle said numbly, sitting across from Nathan in his hotel suite. He arranged everything. The apartment in Memphis, the new job, the paperwork. I thought he was helping me. He was using you, Nathan corrected, pouring them both drinks. Positioning you and Elliot as leverage. The Danville Pharmaceuticals acquisition had been one of Nathan's earliest triumphs. A hostile takeover that made headlines and established him as a force in the business world. He'd never met the company's founder, never knew the man had taken his own life after losing everything, never connected those dots to Marcus Danville Jr., who later joined Prescott Enterprises and befriended Danielle. He tracked me through 3 cities, she realized, encouraged me to move each time I got settled, kept me isolated, dependent on his help, while feeding information to Warren to pressure you, Nathan added, all leading to this moment, when I would discover Elliot, follow you to Richmond, and he could destroy us both publicly. The revenge plot was elegant in its simplicity. Use Nathan's own son to create a scandal that would crash Prescott Enterprises stock and ruin his reputation. I never saw it, she whispered. I trusted him completely. Richmond's historic courthouse steps gleamed white in afternoon sun as 3 separate cars departed. The blackmailer in police custody, her ex-fiancé alone with his dignity and returned ring, and Elliot between his parents, finally united in purpose if not yet in home. Michael had packed his things while they were at the courthouse. His note was brief but dignified. I deserved better than being a placeholder. So did you. Find happiness, Danielle. The ring, a modest diamond that had once represented safety and normalcy, sat beside the note. Can people truly change when given reason enough? Or do we just reveal who we've been all along? Share your belief in the comments. What happens now? She asked Nathan as they watched Elliot play in her backyard, blissfully unaware of the adult's complicated world. That depends on you, he replied, his hand finding hers with newfound familiarity. Not demanding, not presuming, just connecting. 3 years ago, She'd seen only the ruthless businessman, the cold perfectionist, the potential threat to her child. Now she saw complexity. The protective father, the man capable of growth, the partner who fought beside her rather than against her. Elliot needs stability, she said carefully. After everything that's happened. I agree. His fingers intertwined with hers. He deserves two parents who put his needs first, even if those parents live in different cities. Nathan hesitated, clearly weighing his words. Chicago has excellent schools, cultural opportunities, and a penthouse with an empty floor below it that could be converted into a spacious apartment with its own entrance. Close enough for co-parenting, separate enough for independence. The offer hung between them, not a demand but a possibility. She stood in her half-packed Richmond home, surrounded by boxes marked Chicago when his call came through. I bought the building next to mine. Close enough for co-parenting, far enough for independence. The top floor is yours if you want it. No strings attached. Her answer would reshape 3 lives forever. 1 year after she fled his penthouse in darkness, Danielle Harris stood in her own Chicago high-rise, watching their son sleep peacefully in a room with windows facing his father's building. Not as a woman running from power, but as one who had claimed her own. He finally crashed, she said quietly as Nathan entered the apartment, loosening his tie after a late board meeting. 3 bedtime stories and 2 glasses of water later. Nathan smiled, peering into the bedroom where Elliot slept surrounded by glow-in-the-dark stars they'd placed together on the ceiling. The presentation went well. Brightpath loved the campaign. They're signing tomorrow. She'd launched her own marketing consultancy after returning to Chicago, refusing Nathan's offer to work for Prescott Enterprises. Independence mattered for both of them. Their arrangement defied conventional labels. Not quite together, not fully apart. Co-parents who shared dinners 3 times weekly, who exchanged Elliot between apartments with growing ease, who sometimes found themselves lingering in doorways, neither wanting to say goodnight. Chicago's skyline glittered beyond floor-to-ceiling windows, the same city that once witnessed her desperate escape, now framing family dinners, weekend exchanges, and 2 separate homes connected by bridges both physical and emotional. The past year had transformed them both. Nathan established the Prescott Foundation for Foster Youth Education, funding college scholarships and housing. Danielle joined its board while building her business. Prescott Enterprises implemented family-friendly policies that made business headlines. What does it mean to choose someone not out of need or fear, but from a place of wholeness? Have you ever found love that didn't require sacrifice, but offered growth instead? Tell me your story. I've been thinking, Nathan said, joining her on the balcony overlooking the city. About us. Dangerous territory, she replied with a half-smile. We've been dancing around this for months. Taking Elliot to the zoo together. Family dinners. Holiday planning. Everything except acknowledging what's happening. And what is happening, exactly, she challenged. I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. Not the memory from that night. Not just Elliot's mother. You. The woman who stood up to me in Richmond, who rebuilt her life, who teaches me patience every day. His honesty disarmed her. No corporate strategy, no maneuvering, just truth. I was afraid of you, she admitted. Not just what you could take from me, but what you made me feel. It was easier to run than face that kind of vulnerability. He moved closer, hand brushing hair from her face with tenderness that still surprised her. And now I'm not running anymore. When his lips met hers, it wasn't the desperate passion of their past encounters. This kiss held promise, potential, choice. Later, in the quiet of her bedroom, they rediscovered each other with the wisdom of their journey. His hands, once symbols of power and control, now traced her skin with reverence. Her body, once a secret kept from him, now welcomed him home. Stay, she whispered against his neck as moonlight painted them silver. I'm not going anywhere, he promised, sealing the words with a kiss. Morning light found them tangled together, his hand resting protectively over her stomach where, unknown to either yet, new life had already begun. Full circle, a night in Chicago creating a future neither could have imagined. This wasn't about power or possession anymore. It wasn't about Chicago towers or Richmond Gardens. It was about a little boy with curly hair and eyes that matched his father's. And two people who found their way back to each other not because they needed completion, but because they recognized themselves in each other's strength. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys of love, power, and redemption that might just change how you see your own path forward.